New this morning, a federal judge ordered the government to resume refugee admissions and reinstate funding for resettlement agencies. That ruling came down last night. Immigration rights advocates accuse the administration of defying obligations and leaving vulnerable families in limbo. Now, at the same time, House Republicans have approved a bill to restrict the reach of U.S. judges. Joining me this morning to discuss this is our 9 News legal expert, Whitney Traylor. Whitney, good morning.
Good morning, Jordan.
We have read a lot of headlines recently about federal judges stepping in, imposing some of these injunctions that we are talking about. Now, the Trump administration, of course, has lost a key number of cases recently, and in response, what we're seeing is Republicans in Congress trying to limit their power. How are they trying to do this?
Yeah, so the issue is, the concern is that these federal judges, one judge is issuing a nationwide injunction, and so, which is completely lawful. That's within the purview of a judge. And so now you have Congress introducing legislation to eliminate that. And so there's the No Rogue Rulings Act of 2025 that's being introduced in the House. The Senate's also introduced a bill. And what they're saying is that no judge should be able to, no one single federal district judge should be able to issue a nationwide injunction. And that legislation is also saying that if there's two separate states from different circuits, that it would go to a 3-judge panel. And so that's one thing they're doing. They're also introducing, in the House, they introduced articles of impeachment against 6 judges and counting. And that really concerns me. And I'll tell you, the reason why is because we have 3 separate equal branches of government.
Right.
That's why we had the revolution. We had a monarch and we didn't like that. And so now we have 3 separate branches, which is constitutional. And so the concern is if you have judges ruling against you and then you're able to impeach them, then it really negates the power of the judiciary. And that's a major concern, because think about it. If we have disputes, we're always going to have disputes.
Right.
And if we don't trust the judges, if we don't trust the arbiter of this decision, then our government doesn't function because there's no final authority, if you will.
It's the whole point of checks and balances.
Thank you.
Now,
yes.
I want to paraphrase something that we heard a representative out of California, that would be KUSA, say that one of the sponsors of the bills, of course, he said that the judiciary is not co-equal, but it's holding itself to be superior to the executive. Do you agree with this?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think, the issue is when 2 parties come before a judge, if the issue will affect the entire nation, for example, immigration, then that judge has to rule. And there's other venues. That's why you have emergency appeals. That's why you have interlocutory appeals. And that's why we have appellate courts, so that they can run these things up and determine if they're legal. So, no, I don't think simply ruling against the president and issuing a nationwide injunction makes them superior, because there are these other venues that they can pursue in the appellate process.
One of the issues we're hearing coming from Republicans about all of this, though, is the injunctive relief that the judges are imposing. Talk to me more a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in order to get an injunction, there's really 4 things that you have to prove. So you have to, 1, show that you have a likelihood of success on the merits, because what happens is when you file a lawsuit, it may take months and years, especially in federal court, to get a resolution. And so if there's a pending issue that can't wait years, that's when you have to get the injunction. And so there's a standard that the courts hold you to. So is there a likelihood of success on the merits? They do a balancing act. They determine if it's in the public interest. And irreparable harm, which means that if there's no monetary damages that can satisfy it. So, for example, if somebody's going to cut down the oldest tree in Colorado, if they cut it down and then you go to trial and realize they didn't have the ability to cut it down, there's nothing you can do. So you go in and seek an injunction to stop them from doing that. That's what injunctive relief is to either stop somebody from doing something or force them to do something. So an injunction is a very vital and important part of our legal process.
All right, one last thing, and we only have about 30 seconds, but I want to ask you about this notion we're hearing more of, which is judge shopping.
Yes.
Is that a negative, or is that just part of the legal process?
I think that's part of the legal process. I think that's a legal strategy. And when you look at the cases that were brought in, let's say, the Biden administration and the Trump administration, so immigration and environment issues, in the Trump administration, they're taking those cases to California, where judges will the idea is that they will be more favorable to you. Now, I still believe in the judiciary, and I believe that they look at the facts and they rule, and I trust the judges. With Biden, for example, when they brought immigration issues, they went to Texas, where they thought judges would be more favorable to them there. So either way, though, you do have the appellate process. So you always have at least a court of appeals, and then if the Supreme Court accepts it, you always have those sort of recourses. So forum shopping, I mean, just last week, President Trump filed a case dealing with immigration in Waco, Texas, where there's only one federal district judge there. So you talk about the height of forum shopping. Right. So I think that's just part of the process.
Well, this is why every election year they say, regardless of which side you want to vote on, they say think about the judges that the president or the person that you're electing will put in place.
Great point.
All right. Thank you very much, Whitney. We appreciate it.